For as long as I've been watching anime, just when I think I know what to expect with any show or film I can find, something always comes around, and to be honest, the reaction is different depending on what it is I happen to see. But for this, the only way I can really describe it is it's a surreal art piece. A movie where literally every frame is a painting. Add in the large amounts of religious symbolism, have the characters say little to no dialogue, and have a shitty live-action quote-unquote adaptation, and you got yourself a film that garnered a cult following in the decades since it was released back in December of 1985. My name is Payne, and this is Angel's Egg.
その卵の中には何が入ってるのかな。
そんなこと教えられないわ。だって私、あなたを知らないもの。
卵は割ってみなければ、その中に何が入っているのかわからないものだよ。
The movie follows a young girl who roams the remains of a neo-Gothic city protecting a large egg. She meets a young boy one day who gives back her egg after she misplaces it, and from there, eventually wins her trust. The rest of the movie covers the both of them as they talk about the world around them and other philosophical and ideological topics. Now, before I say anything about this movie, the entire thing, if you want to watch it, is on YouTube and is linked down below for anyone who wants to see it. Just like with my last video, if you have issues with depression or are just having a really bad time right now, I suggest you wait a bit until you're in a good place, get something going, or if you really want to do this regardless, go in with caution. I'm giving you the chance to go there now because everything I'm about to say after this is complete spoiler territory. Before I talk more about the movie itself, I'm going to give a quick rundown on the two men who made this possible. The man in the director's chair is none other than Mamoru Oshii, one of the most well-known directors in the anime industry, and is one of a few directors that are openly recognized by filmmakers here in the West, directing films such as Pat Labor, the movie, and Pat Labor 2, which came out in 1989 and 1993, Skycrawlers, as of the making of this video, his most recent film, which came out in 2008, and both Ghost in the Shell and Ghost in the Shell Innocence, which was released in 1995 and 2004 respectively, which are the two films that he is most known for in the mainstream. He's even got a new series coming out this fall, if everything still goes to plan, called Vlad Love, and another film currently in production that's slated to come out in the next couple of years. But before Angel's Egg, he was only known for a couple of projects. The first being Urusei Yatsura, considered to be one of the best comedy anime of the 1980s, where he directed the first 100 or so episodes. Because this was based off of a manga, Oshii had little to no creative control on how the show went. He would eventually make his feature-length film debut in 1983 with Urusei Yatsura Only You, an original story by Oshii, but he decided to play it safe and kept it true to the series. It wouldn't be until a year later, when Urusei Yatsura 2 Beautiful Dreamer was released, that he began to show off his contemporary directing style with a story he made all on his own again. He also took part in making the first ever OVA in 1983 with the 4-episode series Dallos, which I thought was, nothing really special apart from it being the first OVA ever made, so at least it's got that going for it. But while he would be known for much more iconic properties later in his career, Oshii said in an interview that Angel's Egg prevented him from getting any work over the next few years because of how out there this was. As critics at the time weren't fond of it, but like I said earlier, it has amassed a pretty sizable fan base of hardcore anime fans and art enthusiasts in the many years since it came out. The second guy credited with making this possible was a man named Yoshitaka Amano, who worked on the character designs as well as being credited as a co-writer. He started his career as an animator for over a decade before working on the project, and a couple of years after Angel's Egg was released, he would work on the graphic and character designs for a fantasy RPG known as Final Fantasy. Since then, he has worked on the majority of the games in the franchise, including the original Final Fantasy VII in 1997, which was just recently remade and released earlier this month. But just when most people thought it stopped there, a company known as New World Pictures bought the rights to the film in 1987. For people who are unfamiliar, this is the same company that butchered the US distribution rights to Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind back in 1984, so already this wasn't a good sign. One thing led to another, and the project was given to a first-time director named Carl Colper, who decided to turn this ambiguous art film into the movie In the Aftermath, Angels Never Sleep, a post-apocalyptic film I can only describe as a poor man's attempt to replicate Pink Floyd's The Wall by combining 45 minutes of clips from Angel's Egg to live-action clips from the set of a shitty B-movie. What this guy did is basically use Angel's Egg as the spine for his own film, with a completely different story that does nothing to capture what made the original so memorable. Instead of it being this whole religious allegory, it turned into this jumbled mess that was trying to say something but failed miserably. They even added dubbed lines that weren't even in the original.
I was 9 years old, and they said I was ready for travel and experience. And I wondered when I rendezvoused with my brother of all the places he'd seen, and whether he'd ever carried an egg.
And what the fuck are these transitions?
I was too afraid.
What pisses me off more about this is that In the Aftermath got a Blu-ray release before Angel's Egg did. Even though I know this is on YouTube as well, and you probably saw it when I suggested you watch Angel's Egg at the beginning of the video, it still hurts knowing it's getting distributed first, even considering Angel's Egg almost got its shot almost 20 years ago, when a company known as Anchor Bay Entertainment announced they got the DVD rights to the film in March of 2001, but it was later canceled due to licensing issues. All in all, In the Aftermath is a pile of shit. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to defend it in any way. I'm just going to say it as it is. It's a piece of trash. Either Carl Colper or someone at New World is a fucking hack, and I can speak for everyone that has watched Angel's Egg by saying this should have never existed. Now, going back to the original source material, that being Angel's Egg, one of the biggest things about this film is that no one knows the true meaning behind it, and it can be interpreted in any way you might see it fit. Even Oshii has said the meaning of it lies within the viewer, and boy, are there a number of them. While there isn't one clear connotation as to what Angel's Egg actually is, I've found a few that, in my opinion, are pretty accurate. The first one I found, and the one I believe sums up the movie, is that Angel's Egg is about blind faith. Now, keep in mind, I did have to look up a few of these things. I am nowhere near religious, but I did have to look up a few stuff and get some help, because there are some religious themes, as expected from a Oshii film. You know, a bunch of religion, a bunch of philosophy. Expect that when you watch a film with this guy's name on it. So here's how this whole blind faith theory goes. At the beginning of the movie, the boy is looking at this giant orb with statues of people on it. According to this theory, the orb is the eye of God, and the boy represents either Jesus Christ or a reincarnation of Christ himself, which is seen by the cross-like object he has with him, the bandages on both his hands, and a very limited memory, indicating he may be unclear about his faith. The girl, on the other hand, represents the innocence of blind faith, which is shown heavily throughout the film due to how protective she is of the egg, as well as the fact it's represented by a little girl, indicating the innocence part of it. And the boy is there to test her faith that there is something inside the egg. To try and give her closure, he ends up breaking the egg, which reveals nothing. While running after him, she trips into a pond of water where she sees a more mature version of herself in its reflection. And as she is about to die, a lot of eggs emerge from the water, this time with birds in them, ready to be hatched. I know what you're thinking, but bear with me here. At the end of the movie, she is later seen as a statue on the orb, which means she kept her faith, which implies that the rest of the statues on there are of people who have done the same. Another piece of symbolism that I later discovered was related to the Bible were the scenes where fishermen are seen chasing after fish, which makes sense considering Oshii has said he read the Bible for inspiration, because according to the sacred text, the followers of God were referred to as fishermen, going after shadows of fish with their weapons, possibly symbolizing how religion and faith have caused constant conflict throughout history, and shows how eventually their true meaning of faith is gone. One big moment that points to this concept more than any other was that Oshii has said he lost his faith in Christianity prior to production, this revelation coming after he spent a fair amount of his life studying to be a priest, further validating the supposed themes of losing one's faith in the film. Then there's the Noah's Ark theory. You know, the story about the guy who made an ark and was able to round up the 2 of each animal species before the entire earth gets flooded. Yeah, that story. This film supposedly tells the same thing, but with a little twist. In the story itself, Noah sends a dove to see if there is land to go to, and it returns several days later with an olive branch, indicating there is still land. Meanwhile, in Angel's egg, the dove basically never came back. In fact, it dies. Other parts of the film that support this include shots of the boy and the girl going into what looks like an ark with little rooms and skeletal remains everywhere. The last shot of the entire movie, when as it's zooming out, it looks like they're on what looks like an upside down ark around an ocean. And the hypothesis where instead of the boy representing Jesus, he's actually Noah, who waited for the dove for so long he forgot what he was waiting for and lost his faith in God. So God in turn sends down the lost soul of the dove in the form of the girl with the obsession to keep her egg safe as a way to show him he shouldn't lose his faith in God. Instead, the boy tries to tell her the truth about having faith, but she doesn't listen. So he decides, as a way to set her soul free, to break the egg. The final one I could find isn't even related to religion, but instead, it's a coming-of-age story. It was first mentioned in the book Stray Dog of Anime, The Films of Mamoru Oshii by Brian Rue, in which Rue states the film is just about the relationship between the guy and the girl, but those are just a few solid ideas that I could find out of an infinite number of things this film might say, which, again, makes this film one of the most memorable and cryptic anime ever made. In an interview that Oshii did the year it came out, he said he originally was going to direct a Lupin III film, which was later cancelled. He later admits he used aspects from that failed film into the quote-unquote story in Angel's Egg, and it really shows with how the end result came out, with some of the same aspects such as that there's a little girl, the concept of angels, and the theme of one's faith. While I don't believe this film is for everyone, even for people who didn't get what the show meant the first time like me, you could tell through the slow pacing, the meticulous amount of detail, and how much world building is being made with each shot, not just each scene, but each shot, that there is meaning to it. You can feel what it's trying to convey, even when you don't understand what it's trying to say. The fact that both the boy and the girl don't even know where they are or why they're there is presented in a way that draws the viewer in through their natural reactions to each other and the world around them. The best part of Angel's Egg, along with the pacing, is its art and music. The art is absolutely gorgeous. Its detail in both the desolate cityscape and the dark color palette gives off an eerie, discomforting, and sometimes terrifying atmosphere, very much so that it turns the setting into a character of the film itself, because of how dreamlike everything feels. As for the music, it was done by a man named Yoshihiro Kano. It was only one of a couple of credits he ever did, and his first composing credit. And what a debut it was. Adding this orchestral soundtrack to an already baffling setting brings a certain beauty to it, complementing the film in every which way it can by creating moments of suspense, beauty, melancholy, and terror. And that's only when it's used in the film. As a standalone soundtrack, it has a much bigger effect. From the first second you listen to it, you're instantly taken into a different plane of reality. The orchestral pieces make this new world beautiful, mysterious, and tense. Meanwhile, in any instance the chorus plays, you feel like you're in the eye of a tornado, just waiting for the storm to continue. But when the chorus raises its voice, it gets worse. It feels like, instead of a storm, you're walking through hell on earth. Your entire being consumed with every second they hold a note. And when the chorus finally dies down, it turns your soul into nothing but a hollow shell of emptiness and longing. You can even argue the tracks themselves have a personality. They have a mind of their own when you look at their titles: Memory of Water, Fish Hunting, Angel's Fossil, and Different God, just to name a few. Listening through this gave me an experience unlike anything I've ever felt before. And of course, the link is down below for anyone who wants to give a crack at it and get as surprised as I was. If you watched this film and took something philosophical out of it, like I did, that's okay. If you watched this and was annoyed by how slow-paced it was or how pretentious it came off as, that's okay too. If there was ever a perfect example for a film that's not meant for everyone, This is it. It's no question that Angel's Egg, after all these years, is still one of the most thought-provoking and surreal pieces of art ever put to film. Everyone has a different story about what Angel's Egg means, but to me, what Angel's Egg looks like is a story about a world that promises to give you something to praise and live for, but when the time came when you needed it most, it gave you the exact opposite.